Today we are going to review the part 2 of the most commonly used commands in Linux. How to create empty files, move files and directories, and how to remove files and directories as well. Hello and welcome back to Unicast-Administrators. Today we are going to achieve another milestone, which is learning and running commands inside the Linux terminal. The next command that I would like to discuss is called the touch command. Well, the command touch basically allows you to create an empty file by giving it whatever name you want. So let's list again where we are. We are inside print working directory, do an ls-ltr, and we can see here that everything that's with the color blue means that this is a directory, and these are the directories that we created them. And if you look to your left, to the left entire, you have a letter D, which stands for directory. This implies and this illustrates the fact that this is a working directory. Now, these are the read, write, execute permissions for users, group, and others, and we will discuss them later on. But for now, just look to the left and look for the letter D. This indicates that you have a directory. So, in order to create empty files, you use the touch command and you give it whatever name you want. I'll call mine new empty dash file. And if we list this again with ls-ltr, you will see that new empty file, it's with the color white on our screen. That also indicates that this is a file. And if we look to the left, entirely, we can see that we have a dash instead of a D. Well, this dash means that new empty file, it's basically a file. And that's how you create files inside Linux, empty files. Because there are other ways that you can create files and write data to them directly. And we'll discuss about those later on. But the touch command allows you to create an empty file. So if you want to create, let's say, 10 files or 15 files at once, you can use the same method that we use to create my data directories. So let's say that we want to create 10 files, and let's give them a name, new dash file, and here you open a curly brackets and you type in the number from 1 ranging to 10. Hit enter, and now when you list everything again, you see that we have also created 10 new empty files directly using the same method. So that's what touch command does. It creates an empty file. And if we look again to the left, we have a dash here. So the first dash here, indicates the fact that this is a file. How we know it's empty? Well, you can run the commands like cat, and you can copy this and you can paste it here, and you see that nothing pops up. File 6, nothing pops up. That's one way, or the other one is to look here on this column. You have a 0. This means that we don't have any data inside this file. Now, the next command that we can discuss about is the copy command. And copy command, it's CP. So CP stands for copy. And we use it to create copies of files or directories. And in our case, let's say that I would like new empty file to be copied from here, and let's say that we want to put it inside the my data 1 directory. So let's copy new empty file to my data 1. That's how we copy it with the copy command. You give the name of the file that you want to copy, the source file, you take it and you place it into your destination directory. So copy new file, new empty dash file to my data 1 will allow me to copy new empty file to my data 1. If we do an ls-ltr again inside our home directory, we will see that new empty file, it's still here because we copied it, we did not move it, we did not cut it, and we placed it inside my data1. And as soon as we did that, the last modified date for my data1 has changed to this date, which is the date that it's currently set to my system. And we also see that now it has the size of 28 kilobytes. That means that the size has increased as well. And if we do an ls-l on my data1, we see that currently my data1 holds the file called new empty file. And that's how you can copy one file from one location to another. Now, if we want to copy all the new files from this location inside my data, we could use the wildcard, which is an asterisk, like a star. So if we want to copy anything, actually all of the new dash file from 1 to 10, so new dash file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on, if we want to copy this, we type in the command cp, we give it the name, and we put an asterisk or a star, which basically means that this is a wildcard used for all, any symbol, any number, any letter, and so on. So anything that comes after the word new dash file will be taken into consideration, and we are going to give it the destination of the directory my data1 as well. And pay attention to the size. If we list now, we see that now the size has increased from 28 kilobytes to 4096 kilobytes for the directory my data, and the date has also changed. And again, the files are still present here, the empty files are still present here because we copied them. So if we do an ls-l on my data1, here now we have the output and the content of my data, because now after we copy the files, they are here. If we would like to copy directories, so if we would like, for example, to take my data2, my data3 to my data1 directory with the copy command, you will see that it will not allow us to do that because we have to give a specific argument to the my data to the copy command. So if we try to copy my data2, my data3 to my data1, so my data2 would be our source and my data3 would be also our source directory, and we want to copy it inside the destination my data1 file. It will omit it, it will ignore it, because as the output implies, we have to use the -r option, which means -r assigned to the copy command, it means recursive. So for directories, you cannot use the copy command without any arguments, because even if a directory is empty, Linux forces you to use the -r argument to copy recursively anything that is or may not be inside the directory. So if we want to copy again, to run the same command again, I pressed the upper arrow key to bring up my last command. So here, let's just add a -r for recursive, and as soon as I do that, actually let's also add a V, which stands for verbose. Basically this will prompt us an output that will show the command while it's running. So if we type in cp -rv, my data2, my data3, as you can see, has been taken from here and has been copied. It has created a copy of my data2 inside my data1. The same thing has done for my data3. It has created a copy inside my data1. And now, if we list again, you'll see that the size and date for my data1 has changed once more. And if we do an ls-ltr on my data1, So I tried to type in my data with a /. This doesn't work because that's a relative path. So because I'm already inside here, I don't have to put a / in front of it. I can just use my data. And there we go. Here we are. So my data 1 already hosts the my data 2 and my data 3 directories. The next command that I would like to discuss, it's called the move command, mv. So let me type in cd to go back to my home directory, and let's list everything that we have here. So the command that I would like to discuss next, it's called move, mv. Basically mv, it's similar like you would cut file in Windows and you would paste files. You can cut them from one location, move them to another location. The one extra advantage that the move command has in Linux is that you can also rename files on copy. So that means that I would fully take a file from one location, move it to another location and give it another name. But you also have to be very careful with this command, because if you run this command inside inside the directory of the root file and you try to move a directory or a file that is vital to the system and you rename it to something wrong, you might break your system. So you have to be extra careful with the mv command. So for example, if I would like to rename and copy at the same time this file, this new empty file, and let's say that I want to place it inside my data 10, or yeah, let's pick my data 10. We can run the command as it follows. So let's type in mv space new dash empty and press tab to autocomplete your naming. So we want to copy this file, actually we want to move this file and rename it at the same time from this location to my data 10, and instead of new empty file, let's give it the name new moved file and press enter, and this command has finished running. And now if we do an ls-ltr, you will see we don't have the new empty dash file anymore, and now my data 10 holds data. It has been modified lately, and that's why it shows on the bottom. And if we do an ls-l on my data 10, there we go, we have our new moved file. So before we ran the command, this file, this new moved file from inside my data 10 was called new-empty-file. We placed it inside my data 10, and at the same time we gave it the new name, new moved file. So mv, it's used to take one file from one location, and if you want to, you can rename the file. Now if, for example, let's say that we want to move all the new dash files from here to my data 10, but we want to keep the same name and we don't want to rename them, we can just run the command as follows. So mv for move, let's give the name new dash fi, press tab, this auto completes, and we use an asterisk or a wildcard for star. That basically means that it will take each and every single character that follows after the word file. And we want to move everything from here to my data 10. Press a tab. You will see that once I press tab, it automatically added a /, which means that copy this inside what follows inside my data 10, and I press enter. And actually, if you want to see an output before you press enter, press the minus and type the letter V for verbose, for visible output. So -v stands for verbose. So the command is mv -v new dash file star and the destination my data 10 directory. Once I press enter, you'll see I will have output for each and every single file that it's being moved from this location to my data, and it will preserve the name. It won't change the name. and there we go. It does tell you that it renamed the file, but in reality it did not rename it. So you see, new file 1 has moved it to my data 10, but it preserved the name. So if we do an ls-l on my data 10, there we go. We have new file 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on up until 10. So unfortunately, it seems that for this command, it's not so smart to just tell us that it moved and copied the file, says renamed. And I think that's actually by design, because since MV it's also used to rename files, I think that's why we had that there. But in reality, it did not move it did not rename the file. It kept them as it is. So we can do that the same way with directories as well. But we have, for example, if we want to move my data, let's say my data 2, if we want to move my data 2 to my data 10, and we do an ls-ltr on my data 10, we see that we have my data 2 once more. If we want to move my data 3 and rename it at the same time, so if we want to move the directory my data 3, we type in the name my data 3, and we want to move it inside my data 10. Oh, sorry, let me remove / from that. We'll discuss about this difference later on. And instead of my data 3, let's give it a name. Let's give it the name my data 3, all in uppercase. And let's do an ls-l on my data 10 again. My data 10 again. And there we go. So we ran the command to move my data 3 inside my data 10 and to rename it at the same time, all in uppercase. And that's how we moved the files. The last command that I would like to run and test out for this video would be the remove command, the rm. So I'm again print working directory, I'm inside home Johnny, ls-l to list everything that we have. So the remove command rm, it's used to remove files, to delete files or directory. Now you have to be extra careful with this, because you don't have, at least when you run commands from the terminal, you don't have a recycle bin. So you won't have a place where you can restore your data from. So be extra careful when you run the rm, the remove command. The same way as you have to be very careful when you run the mv command, you also have to be extra careful when you run the remove command. So in order to remove directories, you are forced to use one parameter, which is -r. The same way you have to use it when you copy, when you use mv to copy directories, you are forced to use -r for recursive. And in our case, if we would like to delete, let's say, my data 9, the directory my data 9, we have to type in the command rm -r my data 9. That's it, and we have removed my data 9. For example, my data 9 does not appear anywhere on this list anymore because we have removed it. If we do an ls-l on my data 10, we see again the contents that we have for the directory my data 10. We see what's stored inside it. If I would run the rm command on my data 10 to delete it and everything that's inside it, it see that it does not allow us to do that, and it's telling us that it's a directory. And that's because if you want to remove the my data 10 and everything that it's inside it, even if nothing would have been inside my data 10, because this is a simple directory, as a safety measure, when the operating system was first created, kernel, and this was years ago, as a safety measure to prevent administrators or users from deleting files or specific directories by mistake. It has been implemented. This safety measure has been implemented. So if you really want to delete a directory, to remove it, you have to use -r. So now we run the command rm -r mydata10, and there we go. Everything has been removed. If you want to see the output while that command runs, you add a v to the r letter as well, to the r argument. But we leave it as it is for now. So if we do an ls-ltr, we will see that mydata10 has been fully removed from here now. And if we want, for example, to remove all of the directories that start with the word mydata, we can do that using again rm -r, r for recursive, to repeat the same action for everything that is inside the directory. And let's also add v for verbose, so that we can see that output while it does it. So you can type in my data word and you just use an asterisk or a star, a wildcard, that will take everything, every character or symbol that follows after this word, and we just hit enter. And there you go. It's telling us that it removed the, first of all, it removed the files that were inside mydata1, and then it removed the directories mydata1, mydata2, mydata3 that were inside mydata1, and then it removed the actual mydata1 directory, and it moved to the rest of mydata directories. And if we do an ls-ltr, we see that we don't have anything here. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna run the same command on the directory 3. This one, I'm gonna do the same for new \folder 3. Again, I'm escaping the character because this one has spaces inside it. So new \folder \3 to escape the space, so that we don't treat the space as like a character, and we are going to treat it exactly as a space. And let's type in the word new. I could have done the same for new, the one that has spaces inside it, but I just wanted to illustrate again the fact that you have in Linux to escape the characters, the space character, if you want to actually treat the space as a space. Right, so we are deleting everything that is with new, and also we have a folder here. This will remain because we have not given its name to the command. So rm -rf, it shows us what it's deleting from where. First it went into directory 3 and it deleted it, and then inside new folder 3 it deleted the two files, new file with lowercase n and the second file, new file with uppercase n, and so on. Then it moved to actually removing the directory 3, and so on to the rest of the other ones. Now this gave an error. I'm not really sure why this ran on again on new folder 3, because it first removed it here on top. I guess this is because we gave it a new with asterisk here, so I guess it reran the command on this one, but that's fine. Because it did not find it anymore, because it first removed it on this line. So that's pretty okay. So ls-ltr again, we see the output. We don't have anything with new, we just have this folder here and testdir as well, these two, because we did not give these names to the remove command. And pretty much that's how you can remove files or directories from Linux. Pretty much these are one of the most commonly used commands, and you would be surprised to find out that these are actually used on a day-to-day basis. In the next video clips we will have a more in-depth into more advanced commands, and those are commonly used as well, but they are a bit more advanced, so require a different approach as well. So stay tuned for what comes next. Thank you for watching, and looking forward to seeing you next time. Cheers!